Hey, ever play a game and find yourself asking, like, why did they do this? Or why didn't they do this? That's so lazy of them. We've all had that complaint at least once in our gaming life, so today we're talking about 10 laziest moves by AAA games. Now keep in mind, laziness is a broad and strong word. We can't chalk all this up to laziness. It's a general term. We have no idea what's actually going on when people are making games. There could be some sort of complacency, yes, but a lot of this could be chalked up to poor management, the corporations at the top making mistakes, rushed development timelines, general development hell, and stuff that just falls through the cracks. So it's stuff that we're talking about from the outside can appear lazy, but it's not meant to be like a value judgment on the people, even if the game itself sucks. But look, either way, we got 10 examples to talk about, so let's get started off with number 10. A lot of people have called out blatant and extensive map reuse in the Black Ops 7 campaign. For example, Hijacked is reused in the mission called Disruption, and it's completely shameless. Skyline is reused in full as well. The entire Avalon map, that's half the campaign mode, is just a Warzone map that they've held off on releasing so that they could use it extensively in this rough campaign here. Now, map reuse isn't uncommon with Call of Duty games. They did it a lot in Modern Warfare 3 as well, if I remember correctly, but Black Ops 7 here is egregious about it. It feels like the vast majority of the campaign is reused and repurposed assets from other modes, especially zombies. The enemy AI is also pretty abysmal, probably because the game is always online. You know, enemies have two modes. They either just stand in place and shoot at you, or move to a specific flag and then completely ignore you and then reach their location, and then they stand in place and shoot you. It's some of the more boring, non-compelling enemies we've seen in a Call of Duty game. Not to mention the embarrassingly bad AI-generated images they use all over the place in multiplayer. Like, your Call of Duty, your Activision, you couldn't cough up a few bucks for art. Like, what are we even doing here? What are we, the players, even paying for here? From this to the reused maps, it just feels kind of phoned in. Next at number 9, this is a classic one. Aliens Colonial Marines. You probably remember this game as one of the most disappointing games of that year when it was released, because there was a lot of hype around this one. An alien first-person shooter where you're a colonial marine blowing away Xenos. There was so much potential for that. The game had flashy trailers, a lot of hype built up, and then the game released and it was bad. Statistically, there's a good chance that you were online when this all went down. It was one of the games that truly went viral for people just completely bashing it. It was such a disappointment for Alien fans. Alien fans are used to disappointment, but this was really bad. It just felt like an unfinished, half-assed, rushed, messy game. And not to mention the fact that a lot of the trailers and gameplay stuff just looked misleading pre-release. One of the biggest things in the game was that it's just boring to play. The biggest thing is that the enemies, the aliens, the xenomorphs, they're so unresponsive and really dull to fight. The enemies suck. They weren't threatening. It wasn't fun. But believe it or not, it was fixed very easily thanks to a modder. The developer-publisher Gearbox never got around to fixing this, but thanks to a small fix by a modder, literally just like changing basically a typo in the code, made the enemies much more responsive and much more threatening. It basically switched them on. Simply fixing that makes the game a lot better. You'd be surprised. But Gearbox actually never got around to fixing this. This wasn't like a patch or an update for the game that easily would have helped. What the hell were they thinking here? I don't know. I mean, what were they thinking with the entire Aliens Colonial Marines game? I will never know. Next, over at number 8, just speaking of bugs, the consensus that Bethesda generally refuses to fix some bugs. Maybe it's the nature of their style of games with them just having so many bugs that they never get around to all of them. But, I mean, the biggest example right now is the Fallout 4 re-release for PC, which just has a lot of issues and also has a lot of old bugs. Like, many bugs that were present since the launch of Fallout 4 are still in the game. Just look at Steam reviews. It's crazy. The anniversary update broke a lot of mods and fan updates as well. And then they still didn't fix a lot of those problems. The same deal with the recent Oblivion remaster, the same with the Skyrim Legendary and Special Editions. This seems to be a pattern by Bethesda, and it can just be incredibly frustrating, especially if you're sensitive to bugs. Plus, too, I think it all just goes around with the modding scene and Bethesda's complicated history with the modders. You can argue that a lot of modders really helped build up Bethesda games. The modders fix things, they add things that that Bethesda wouldn't. And Bethesda kind of always has been like hands-off, kind of ignoring them. And in some ways, it almost feels like malicious at this point rather than just indifference. Either way, I still generally like Bethesda games, but for the hardcore community, they're definitely batting 1,000 at this point, specifically in the bugs department. Next at number 7, Silicon Knights, the developer known for a lot of things. Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain, Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem, also on GameCube, Metal Gear Solid, The Twin Snakes, the remake of the original game, then Too Human and X-Men Destiny. Then after that, they shut down. But the reason why they did is the crazy part. The Canadian developer actually sued Epic Games for failure to, quote, provide a working game engine, with Silicon Knights saying essentially that Epic Games was providing a crappy Unreal Engine 3 and quote-unquote sabotaging the licensees and how it all works, leading to Silicon Knights struggling and losing money because of this partnership or agreement. Silicon Knights also was pissed that like they were holding back certain updates for Unreal Engine 3 and only giving them with certain games. It's kind of complicated, but it was a back and forth thing because Epic Games sued Silicon Knights back, nailing them for something much bigger, quote, unauthorized use of Epic's licensed technology, and that they had, quote, infringed and otherwise violated Epic's intellectual property rights, including Epic's copyrighted works, trade secrets, know-how, and confidential information. Alleging essentially that they built their own engine, but they stole a bunch of stuff from Unreal Engine 3 and put it in their own game toolsets to build their games. GameDeveloper.com at the time reported, and I quote, that a North Carolina judge has now stated that Silicon Knights, quote, repeatedly and deliberately copied significant portions of Epic Games' code containing trade secrets and used it to create a competing product. Silicon Knights' own proprietary game engine, but it wasn't so proprietary, I guess. The whole thing here that feels lazy is the fact that they were, I guess, copy and pasting some code, you know, like them using significant portions of the Unreal Engine, you know, trying to take from Epic when building their own game engine, and they didn't do a good job covering it up because Epic and the courts caught them. That was what the court ruled, and Silicon Knights had to destroy all that game code, and that led to more development struggles, and ultimately, in 2012, after X-Men Destiny, they shut their doors. Next over at number 6, Starfield. Starfield is definitely the punching bag on the internet, but I didn't think it was too bad of a game. Still, it definitely has significant issues and isn't quite as good as it could be, man. And the big thing that I see a lot of people complain about is points of interest, or POIs, that just repeat constantly. Essentially, copy and pasted environments that all feel identical to one another, like the same objects in the same places with the same notes, just copied all over the galaxy. They go to all this trouble to create this procedural world with, you know, procedurally generated planet surfaces, but then have an abysmally small pool of points of interest to actually choose from. And they aren't even capable of actually introducing any randomness to this location. At least that's how it feels. It's understandable to a certain degree to have some kinds of structures always having the same layouts, but the same notes, the same corpses laying around, the same shit like that, that just feels really silly and really phoned in. It's unfortunate. It's to the point where 2 years ago, someone on Reddit actually counted 82 unique places, 150 different radiant POI designs, and 120 stars with over 1,000 planets. Which, those numbers sound big and really impressive, but it quickly fizzles out when you realize you're gonna visit the same, like, planetary laboratory research outpost a million times over, with just like a very small handful of the exact same layouts, the same, you know, corpses or bodies laying around, the same objects on the tables. It's rough. It doesn't give you that sense of wonder or that sense of exploration. Now at number 5, here's a good one. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, which kind of ended up its whole big live service master plan with the slideshow. Just kind of like static screens, moving images that just wrapped up the story real quick. The game, when at launch, is this multi-million-dollar thing with these lavish, highly detailed cutscenes and performance capture and graphics. Like, honestly, the presentation is where the game is actually pretty decent. But when it became obvious that the game was not going to be this long-term, profitable, endless live service game, they just cut and run, ending the seasons early, and they wrapped up the story, the whole like Brainiac and like bringing the Justice League back with this really unsatisfying slideshow conclusion. It really felt like just throwing more gasoline onto the fire, because the original base game already felt like an insult to a lot of players, a lot of Rocksteady Games fans, and comic book fans. Why did they do all this? Why did they butcher these characters? What was it all for? Was it for some big endgame story reveal? Well, it doesn't matter because they phoned that in too. Now number 4, Destiny 2 and sunsetting story campaigns, shutting them down, locking them away, rather than finding literally any other solution. Destiny is an endless kind of ongoing game, and when it introduces big new story campaign stuff, a lot of the times, the old ones get sunsetted or vaulted or locked away, leading to the frustration of some players. Obviously, some players are ready to move on and just like move on to the next big thing that the game is delivering, but some players really enjoyed some of those moments or want to see it again or revisit stuff, and they can't. They could have done so many other things to fix the file size bloat, but they don't. They could have gone that Helldivers route and cut down on the file sizes and amazed everyone. They could have made the old campaigns accessible as maybe like an optional download or something. There are a lot of things they could do instead of just removing all the stuff that people want to see again. And ultimately, the most important thing, the stuff that they paid for, the stuff that they should always have access, they should be entitled to because they handed over their hard-earned dollars. I guess maybe for this, a lot of the problem is the framework the game is built on. It probably makes it difficult just because it's aging. And look, I'm not a hardcore Destiny person, but like, I guess there is some logic to sunsetting certain weapons and stuff for balance reasons. There is some stuff there that you can argue or make sense, but sunsetting story campaigns just feels ridiculous. And it just feels like the studio is not interested or like willing to find a real solution there. Now at number 3, EA's infuriating policy of sending otherwise great games out to die. This frustrates people, especially people on PC and people who don't like micro-stuttering. Perfect examples, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Still a buggy, stuttery mess. Dead Space Remake got like one patch and felt like it was very quickly abandoned from a technical standpoint. Like there is a patch note history, but it got one major patch and that's it. We're not blaming the individual developers on this one because it just feels like EA has been making this mandate to like put out games and then not provide long-term technical support on them. And it's an annoying trend. And it's not just EA. We've seen it with other games that have released and had technical issues for a long time that weren't fixed, like Silent Hill 2 remake. It's just a thing. And it doesn't feel like lazy developers. It feels more like lazy, greedy publishers, the money guys, the corpos that charge high prices for a game. They force the developers to rush the game out the door, and then they don't provide time or budget for those developers to make good on promises and actually fix the issues in the game. And it feels counterintuitive because like long-term support is how a lot of these games could grow an audience on PC. So they're like cutting their nose off to spite their face here for short-term gain, and it can be incredibly frustrating. Now down at number 2, this is just a funny one. There was an IGN watermark that actually ended up on the box art for the Wii release of Okami. This we can call 100% lazy straight up. It's kind of funny. It feels like Capcom just took a screenshot from IGN and put it on the box art for their own game. This just is unbelievable. It feels like a bunch of people did not care or did not notice. How did this get past so many people? It's like they just downloaded a screenshot of a game on their web browser instead of like getting the official corporate files. And the fact that like nobody made sure there wasn't this big glaring IGN watermark on the artwork for their game box, like, and then shipped it. That's funny that nobody at Capcom noticed that. It is crazy how ambivalent they were to Okami back then compared to now, where they've specifically reformed Clover and they're making a sequel. So I guess there's like a bright spot here. At the very least, you can argue that Capcom doesn't really screw up like that anymore, but who knows? You never know. Stuff like this could still happen. Hopefully it doesn't, but let's move on. At number 1, one of the biggest examples people cry laziness from game makers are sports games. The way they feel just completely copy and pasted every year with just some roster changes. The biggest culprit was FIFA. FIFA 21 Legacy Edition for Switch was like really the straw that broke the camel's back here. They literally stopped updating the game since like 2018. Every year after that, literally all that was changed were roster updates. That's it. So, quote, without any new development or significant enhancements, in EA's words, for years. It wasn't until FIFA 2024 did they do anything to update the game. This one finally upgraded the game's engine to Frostbite engine, but little else was really done. That means they went 5 years selling essentially the same game. That's an almost unheard of level of apathetic laziness towards the games, towards the things that they put out that they want people to buy. Even when they finally shook themselves out of their stupor, they only managed to do the bare minimum to update the game because a lot of people really still didn't like the 2024 version either. But hey, it's FIFA, right? It's always going to piss people off one way or another. Those are 10 examples of just lazy moves made by AAA games. There are probably more examples out there. It's a little cynical today, so let us know what you think in the comments. If you got any other examples, something that bothers you or grinds your gears, hit us up. If you like this video, clicking a like button helps us out. We appreciate that. And if you're new, maybe consider subscribing because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.